Hey there, I'm Jana with Purl Together, and welcome to the After the Rain Sweater Knit-along. So this first video is going to be all about preparing and getting started with swatching. Now, before you click away or stop the video, understand that swatching is super important, especially when you're knitting a garment that you want to fit, or you want it to fit a certain way with either positive or negative ease. It's really important to know your gauge. And if you're brand new here, gauge just means your natural way of knitting and how many stitches per inch you get when you knit a swatch. So the point of a gauge swatch is to be able to take like a cookie cutter sample of what's going to be your finished sweater. So let me show you an example. So I started out this sweater by knitting in the round, because I'm knitting my sweater in the round, except for just the very beginning. You'll see that later. But 99% of this sweater is knitted in the round. So I want my swatch to be in the round, because a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people, their gauge changes slightly when they're knitting versus purling. We just have different hand movements, and sometimes your gauge is affected by that. Your gauge will be affected by lots of things, whether you're tired, what kind of material your needle is made out of, whether it's bamboo or stainless steel or double points, magic loop, circulars, whatever. So it's important for you to do a swatch to determine these things. Now, on whatever pattern you're using, there's usually a recommended gauge. So in this case, our gauge is, I believe it's 5.5 stitches per inch, and that would be 22 stitches over 10 centimeters or 4 inches. Now, the pattern indicates that. By the way, the link to the pattern is down below in the video description, so go and download that. You'll need to buy the pattern from Heidi Kurtmeyer, fantastic designer. This pattern is very well written. I'm going to walk through some tips for you when we get to each stage. I will not be showing the pattern on screen because that'd be a copyright violation. However, you'll know what I'm doing as we go along. So never fear, there's going to be a lot of hand holding. You can always post questions in the Facebook and or Ravelry group. So your gauge is 22 stitches and 30 rows. Now with us, both are important. Row gauge and stitch gauge is important. However, I feel that the stitch gauge, or the stitches per inch, is a little bit more important than the row gauge, because you can always knit those sleeves a little bit longer if you need to, or knit the body a little bit longer, obviously provided you have enough yarn. So your gauge is really important, and a lot of people will say, okay, well, I got 6 stitches per inch, that's close enough. Not really. It's important to get gauge on track, because that half of a stitch difference per inch over the course of round and round and round, that will become an exponential issue. So you might think that a half a stitch is not a big deal, but it will definitely add up over time, whether we're talking about a half a stitch more or less. So let's talk about that real quick. So let's say I'm getting 6 stitches per inch and I want to have 5.5. So when you're adjusting needle size, you go up a needle size, which would be a bigger diameter needle, to create fewer stitches per inch. So I know that seems the opposite of what you think sometimes, but let me show you an example. So when I did my swatch, I started out, you can see my swatch is kind of more narrow at the bottom. That's because I started out with whatever size needle I started with, and I got too many stitches per inch because I was knitting more. My needle size was smaller, so I'm creating more stitches per inch. Okay, so then I marked that with my little pen there. And then I changed my needle size and kept knitting 2 more stripes. And then I still didn't get a gauge. So I changed my needle size. I put that on there, changed my needle size, and I knitted 2 more stripes. And then I did get gauge. But I've knitted a big enough swatch that I was able to measure here. I was able to measure over here. And when you measure, you'll take your handy dandy gauge or ruler, whichever you have. You want to measure 3 or 4 inches across. Don't just measure 1 inch, because if you have, let's say you have 5.25 stitches all the way across, that would be 21 stitches per swatch measurement, 21 stitches in a 4-inch section rather than 22. So again, 1 stitch will make a difference when you're talking about a bust measurement that's 49 or 50 inches, that's going to make a difference all the way around, especially if it's too small. You may not want that. It's important to get gauged. Okay. All I've done to make my swatch here is I used the simple long tail cast on. If you're new to that, I put a video down below for specific instructions on how to do the long tail cast on. So I cast on 40-ish stitches. So I had, I knew I was going to have enough fabric to accurately measure my swatch. And then I just did a regular bind off. The other thing I want to say is that I started my swatch with 40 stitches in a size 5. The designer began hers with a size 4, US size 4, or a 3.5 millimeter needle. Just because I've been knitting a long time, I knew that a size 4 wasn't going to work for my tension. Go ahead and start there if you're a brand new knitter. Everybody's tension is different. It is not uncommon at all for you to have to size up several or size down several. If you're a very loose knitter, maybe a size 4 works for you. I'm kind of a medium-ish knitter. I mean, I don't knit really, really tight. I ended up getting gauged with a US 7, which I forget what millimeter that is. So I think it's 4.5 millimeter. It's going to vary a lot. So this was a 5, this was a 6, and then finally I got a gauge on a 7. It's okay. What the designer puts on the pattern is simply a recommendation or a place to start. Everybody is different. That's why you have to swatch. Okay, a size 4 needle would never work for me with this sweater. It would fit a child. As always, if you have questions about that, drop a comment down below or post in the Ravelry or Facebook groups. The links to those groups are in the description down below. The other point of making a swatch in the round is that this also allows you to start your striping technique and see what you might like. It also gives you a chance to carry your yarn up the side and get used to the tension of that and how that's going to be. It lets you try out some of the jogless join techniques the jogless stripes at the beginning of the round if you choose to do that. I have recently done 2 videos about jogless stripes, and so you might want to check those out before you knit your swatch. I'll put the links down below. All the links will be down below. Okay, where you can buy yarn, where you can buy the pattern, where you can watch swatching videos and all that as we prepare this week to get started. So I've done this swatch and I'm in the middle of knitting this sweater. I'm on the sleeve, but I'm also starting another sweater with you. So I've done my swatch for that one as well. You can also knit this sweater straight with no stripes. If you just want to do a solid and it's your first sweater, fantastic. I will explain how we're going to go through the pattern and everything will become clear. So this is a fantastic pattern. It'll be great for your first sweater. It's great for just an everyday comfy raglan. Again, if you have any questions at all, be sure to let me know. I want to see pictures of your swatch. I'm gonna set up some threads in the Ravelry group that will be specifically for swatching, works in progress, and then finally a finished object thread as well. I run the knit-alongs on Ravelry because it's easy to keep things organized by topic, and it's easy for me to go through and pick winners for giveaways. So there will be some few giveaways happening too during this knit-along. If you'd like to donate a prize, hit me up. Email me at jana@purltogether.com. Donations for prizes are always appreciated. Okay, I hope that helps a little bit. As always, thank you for watching. If you'd like to become a patron, head over to patreon.com/purltogether and you can see what I'm offering for a small monthly pledge. Welcome to the knit along. Thanks for joining us. I am looking forward to seeing your swatches.